You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday the 16th of January. The ugly face of UKIP. Britain to be inundated with Romanians and Bulgarians. Widow leaves £100,000 to pet charity, who then kill her dog. Deportation order for Iranian rapist who filmed his victim's ordeal. German Chancellor declares Christians most persecuted. France fears Somali Islamists may display dead Frenchmen. Boo-hoo, Hamza's wife whines as he's being mistreated. Thought for the day, we were not wrong in the British National Party. And finally, a fishy tale. UK News. The ugly face of UKIP. Sunday Mirror exposes racist and homophobic views of party members. The UK Independence Party has surged to a record high in the opinion polls under its brash leader Nigel Farage. But a Sunday Mirror investigation today reveals a sickening catalogue of racist and homophobic views held by some of its biggest supporters. They use the party's official online members forum to express extremist and offensive opinions on issues ranging from gay marriage to bogus links between homosexuals and paedophilia. Their outbursts are exposed as the party gears up against both the Tories and Labour in next year's European elections with its flagship policy that Britain should pull out of the EU. On the forum, senior UKIP member Dr Julia Gaspar branded gay rights as a lunatic's charter and claimed some homosexuals prefer sex with animals. She added, as for the links between homosexuality and paedophilia, there is so much evidence that even a full-length book could hardly do justice to the subject. The former parliamentary candidate and UKIP branch chairman in Oxford now faces the sack over her comments. A Nationalist spokesperson commented, "Soon the British middle class will wake up to the fact that Farage will use anything against his rivals, but his party members have let down the side. Because whether we like it or not, people are human with all the human faults. UKIP are really much more out of tune with their membership than it would first appear." Britain to be inundated with Romanians and Bulgarians. Communities Secretary Eric Pickles has spoken of his concern of the amount of Eastern Europeans coming into Britain due to a housing shortage for our own British peoples. The ridiculous comment made by Pickles and his band of multiculturalists comes many years too late and is transparent in the eyes of the British public. Labour's immigration policy from Eastern Europe has allowed criminals and rapists into Britain from Poland, Czech Republic and Hungary. These criminals have helped to fill our jails to maximum capacity since 2004. Pickles is using words of common sense, but it is too little and far too late. Widow leaves £100,000 to pet charity, then it immediately puts down her loyal dog, found lying beside her body. When widow Linda Hill drew up her will, she left £100,000 to her favourite animal charity and expressed a hope that its staff would find a new home for her faithful dog Henry. But just hours after Mrs Hill's body was discovered in her home, a vet from the charity recommended that the golden retriever be put down, and he was destroyed the following day. Wood Green Animal Shelter, based in Godmanchester, came under fire from neighbours of widow Linda Hill, who said that she would have been devastated by their actions. A Nationalist reporter said the charity have not received the money as yet, but say that Henry's well-being was compromised and it was the kindest thing to do. Well, I think that a new home for the last few months would not have hurt them at all. Most people are just too lazy nowadays to do their jobs properly. Poor Henry. Well, let's hope they're together now. Maths teacher whose wheelie bin protrudes just 12 inches outside the boundary of her home is dragged to court by council for causing a hazard. A teacher has been summoned to court and faces a £1,000 fine because her wheelie bin juts out just 12 inches beyond the boundary of her home. Alex Young, 47, is to appear at Stevenage Magistrates Court after her local council said that the grey plastic bin could present a hazard to drivers and disabled people. It said the bin could prevent grass from being cut even though there is not a patch of green in sight around the rear of her 3-bedroomed home. Miss Young was also told that the bin's appearance could negatively impact on the street scene environment. Iranian rapist Hessam Khosravi has received a laughable 6 years in prison for a rape attack on a British woman. Immigrant Khosravi, aged 24, dragged the victim into a bedroom after an argument and raped her twice. On both occasions he filmed the ordeal. Investigators viewing the film footage are said to have heard Khosravi laughing and commenting in Farsi while his victim cried throughout the ordeal. Officials say he will be deported after his 6-year prison sentence has finished. But don't hold your breath, says a World at 8 spokesperson. He will probably marry while in prison and gain the right to family life. In this country, of course. 6 illegal immigrants kicked out of Britain. Members of the British public have reported 6 illegal immigrants working in Britain. The tip-off to the authorities led to a raid at 2 restaurants, one in Bourne and the other in Stamford. The border agency checked out the 2 restaurants and found the illegal workers. The Bengal Clipper restaurant was the first hit, catching 2 illegal workers from Bangladesh. The next raid on the China Palace restaurant detained 4 Chinese illegal immigrants. All 6 are being detained awaiting the next flight home at the expense of the British taxpayer. One World Day spokesperson commented, "Instead of a £10,000 fine, start deporting those who employ them, including their entire families." European news. German Chancellor declares Christians most persecuted. Christianity is the most persecuted religion in the world. To anyone moderately aware of the world events, this passing comment by German Chancellor Angela Merkel is an obvious fact. However, it created a stir in her country and beyond by groups with anti-biblical agendas. Several human rights organisations, from the German Green Party to Amnesty International to the United Nations Human Rights Council's Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religious Belief, declared her statement to be either totally senseless or misguided. They said her opinion was based on occasionally rumoured numbers. The highly respected Christian International Aid Society, Open Doors, jumped into the fray, countering that 80% of the religiously persecuted individuals worldwide were Christian, totalling some 100 million people in all. Open Doors' list of 50 most religiously repressive regimes fall primarily into 2 categories: Muslim or Marxist-legacy. Swedes most worried about organised crime. Sweden's defence and security elite gathers for 3 days of debating, dining and skiing amid reports that a majority of Swedes believe organised crime is the biggest security threat. As the conference participants gathered in Sälen, a report from the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency showed that a majority of Swedes see international organised crime as the top security threat to their country. 3 out of 4 respondents said that they are quite worried or very worried about organised crime. 73% said they are most worried about relations between the Muslim and Christian world, while 2 out of 3 respondents cited depletion of the Earth's resources as their top concern. The past year's events in the Middle East and influx of refugees are 2 other issues that concern Swedes, cited by 65% and 56% of respondents respectively. France fears Somali Islamists may display dead Frenchmen. Paris. France fears that Somali jihadists are planning to display the bodies of soldiers and an intelligence agent. All indications unfortunately lead us to believe that the Al-Shabaab are preparing to organise a disgraceful and macabre display, said Defence Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian. The agent was killed during a failed operation to rescue a French hostage who has been held since July 2009 by Al-Shabaab. World news. Oh boo-hoo, wife of extradited Muslim terrorist whines that US prison officials are being too mean to him. The Council on American-Islamic Relations is waiting to swoop in with a lawsuit as we speak. Wife of accused terrorist Captain Hook, better known as Islamic hate preacher Abu Hamza, has attacked American prison authorities for keeping him locked up 23 hours a day and refusing to give him a comb. She has complained on a supporter's website about his living conditions and that he has been denied any face-to-face meetings since his incarceration. Even when he meets with his lawyers, he cannot see them because they sit behind a glass screen with a curtain. After 8 years, Hamza, 54, was removed from England and sent to the USA in October 2012. The legal and prison bills cost British taxpayers at least £1 million. While he is awaiting trial on 11 terrorism-related offences in the USA, his wife Najat is still living on welfare benefits in London with some of her 7 children. Thought for the day: we were not wrong in the British National Party. We in the British National Party have always been accused of being racist in our policies regarding immigration and the effect of such in our country. I'm going to read a letter written by our European Rapporteur in full on the positive lies of diversity. Diversity means an acceptance that all things morally, spiritually, racially, sexually and socially are all of equal value. So basically we are supposed to be bereft of any notion that our values in these terms are of any consequence, and that the imposed multicultural values are the beacon of hope that will set people free from the various biases they have developed over the centuries and millennia. Effectively, this means we should not judge any racial or religious grouping for their values, even though they judge us for ours. So what are the parameters of social behaviour that we should embrace according to the liberals? Militant homosexuality, nun marriage, renting instead of buying, complete acceptance of all other races, no matter what their predilections, sexual promiscuity, and promoting a hatred of any values that could be deemed traditional. It is always interesting to look at the people who promote these messages, as they are usually hypocrites who do not live by the same values that they espouse, and a lot of cases are very traditional in various ways. They are a bunch of trendy lunatics who think they are morally superior to those who disagree with them, and who think nothing of branding people as racists, sexists, homophobic and Islamophobes whenever they disagree. You cannot argue with these bigots, as they claim the moral and political high ground as their own, and even if they are wrong in their assessment of various situations, the Arab Spring comes to mind, they can and do say that morally they were correct. They are moral, political and racial vacuums that suck in and expel fashionable quotes. They are stupid, ignorant, bigoted hypocrites. Being called a bigot or a racist by these creatures is a pleasure I've had many times after they have lost an argument. I despise them, as they are traitorous morons. Muslims hate dogs as well, so perhaps in order to make them happier and to promote social inclusion, we should give up our rights to dog ownership. I'm sure the RSPCA would have no objections to this, as it promotes their image of being politically correct. While we're at it, why not also legalise, or ignore as the authorities have done, child marriage, paedophilia, child abuse, wife beating, Sharia law and the prostitution of white girls by Muslims? After all, it would promote social harmony and show just what a gutless bunch of bastards currently rule on these issues. And before I forget, don't hesitate to prosecute, defame and persecute all those who object to barbaric practices such as the ones I outlined. After all, we do want to live in a harmonious and multicultural society, even if it means giving up our rights, laws and traditions in favour of a bunch of savages. Now put these comments with an email sent in by a member addressed to World at 8. I used to live in Stepney, right next to St Dunstan's Church, and was basically forced out of this area by Muslim ghettos. My family were constantly threatened by Muslim youths, and reported these threats to the police was next to useless, as they just cast the usual blind eye. I know Duckett Street well. The Ocean Estate was infamous, full of third world immigrants, and was a run-down slum as one would expect with such inhabitants. I moved to the Isle of Dogs, and that was fine for a while, and the BNP even got a council seat in Millwall. In 1993 the BNP won a council seat in a local by-election. I believe it was Derek Beekton who won the seat. However, Labour won the following year by a landslide. They simply flooded the Isle of Dogs with Bengali Muslims and other third worlders. I did hear on good authority that the Labour Party went round with interpreters to the immigrants' houses, warning them what would happen if the Nationalists got in again. Now look at the Isle of Dogs today, full of ghettos and a slum. These people are like a plague of locusts, and they leave a wave of devastation in their wake. I have seen this with my own eyes throughout different areas of Tower Hamlets. We are gradually being pushed further and further out. Also, my brother-in-law came to visit us last Sunday, and his girlfriend told me that the Tower Hamlets Council are trying to force her nan of 82 from her home of more than 30 years. She was a joint tenant with her friend who passed away the latter half of last year. Thus she now has a spare room. Ergo, our local council want to force her out of her home and into a care home. While this is happening, she also told me that Poplar Harker has given 2 houses to a Bengali man, one for each of his wives. Now forgive me if I'm wrong, but I thought bigamy was a crime in this country, or have more elements of Sharia law been introduced? Alas, that is not all. Her 12-year-old niece was propositioned by a 50-plus Muslim man. She was standing outside her house looking at the New Year's Day fireworks just after midnight, and the man asked her to remove all of her clothes. She ran inside and told her father, who understandably went ballistic and went looking for him. End of email. It behoves the phrase, just because you're paranoid it doesn't mean the bastards are not out to get you. Still think that this new shiny side to Islam in the age of love is really believable? I'm now going to read a letter which was actually sent to the Belgian King Leopold on January the 7th this year. I start. Belgium, local councillor of Islam party invites Belgian king to convert to Islam. Posted by Sheridanine Zakawi. Open letter to His Majesty King Albert II, Brussels. In the name of God the Merciful. Sire, this letter was written by Radoun, son of Ebed Salam Ben Ali, local councillor in Anderlecht, to Albert, son of Leopold, son of Albert, King of the Belgians. Blessed be those who follow the path of revelation. Glory to God above, whom there is no other divinity, the Master of the world, the Sovereign. I testify that Jesus, son of Mary, is the Spirit of God and His Word. It is God who sent the Archangel Gabriel to the Virgin Mary to announce the good news. God created him from His Spirit and His breath, and He created Adam from His hand and His breath. In the Gospel, Jesus announced the forthcoming arrival of the last prophet, Muhammad. The first versions of the Bible testify to this. In the Holy Koran, God enjoins us to believe in all His prophets, His angels and His sacred books. Any monotheist believer will find in the Koran the satisfaction of his faith. Consequently, I invite you to adore God, the only one who has no associates at all, and to obey Him, as well as to follow the path of Islam, which is the culmination of monotheism announced by Abraham. Salvation and peace be upon him and his descendants. In embracing Islam you will find peace, and God will give you a double reward. If you reject Him, you will bear on your shoulders the burden of the sins of your subjects and your followers. I have accomplished my task by transmitting this good news to you. It is up to you, sire, to take the right decision. May peace be upon you as well as your family and all those who follow the right path, that of those who have obtained the satisfaction of God. End of letter. Now, if there are 2 things that make my gorge rise, it's liars and hypocrites, and this so-called exhortation to convert covers both. I'm sure you must find it odd that when these colonisers and missionaries live in the Western lands, they seem to adopt Jesus as a primary prophet in their endeavours to convert us unbelievers, as do the Ahmadiyya sect with their supposed body of our Saviour resting in northern India and claiming yet another section of the Bible. Now, I'm not a very good Christian, being always inclined to slap the other cheek of the other person, but I do know that nowhere in our King James Bible or the Old Testament of the Jews is Muhammad mentioned by name or deed. He ain't there because he is a phony prophet and Islam is a handmade religion for the desert people wandering over the face of Arabia. They worship a meteorite for pity's sake and are now adopting parts of our Christian religion that suit them and which they hope will sway the uneducated masses to either ignore their transgressions in our country or convert to Islam. Their actions, however, belie their newly adopted attitudes. They kill Christians without a moment's hesitation and set about outbreeding the indigenous peoples of any country they contaminate. At last a coven of these parasites have been brought to trial at the Old Bailey. They are from the Oxford area, which shows that this particular bit of nastiness is working its way south from north of our country, where it has been ignored and covered up by most of the authorities in those areas for the last 30 years. I refer, of course, to the sexual grooming of non-Muslim children by what are predominantly members of the Muslim communities, which litter this country like so much trash. It comes as no surprise that the Guardian paper has failed to acknowledge these 9 paedophiles are Muslim. A précis of the Guardian text is that people as young as 11 years old from poor backgrounds and in care homes were targeted. They were plied with drugs and alcohol and were taken to properties in Bradford and Leeds and sold as sex slaves to other paedophiles. Children were reported to have been subjected to the most horrific rape crimes. The court took 30 minutes to read all the offences committed by the 9 men in the trial at the Old Bailey. Now, in a more in-depth report and wearing my pro-fam hat, the details of this case are truly horrific. One of the children became pregnant at 11 and when the father, gang member Mohammed Kara, discovered it, he used an instrument to perform an abortion on her, it is alleged. There should be another word for this torture and rape, apart from grooming. You groom horses, not hopefully stub out cigarettes on them and cower them into prostitution. If any listeners have a title that doesn't include all Muslims and grooming becomes abuse, please send them in on your comments. Even now the case has been highlighted as girls from troubled upbringings and care homes, which of course denotes that these men did these children a favour in abusing them. To bring these children under control, they were attacked by their boyfriends using knives, meat cleavers and baseball bats to inflict severe pain on the girls for their own twisted pleasure. On other occasions the girls were bitten, scratched, suffocated, tied up, beaten and burnt with cigarettes. To cap it all, and as we have said in the YBNP anti-grooming leaflet, these men are said to have fed the girls copious amounts of drugs and alcohol so they become more complicit to their depraved demands. As the prosecutor Neil Lucas QC stated, at first they made her feel special by paying her the attention she did not receive at home. It was an act of grooming. The men, having realised she was a vulnerable girl, were targeting her for their own sexual purposes. In fact, if you have read this leaflet or listened to some of my talks, Mr Lucas has reiterated our facts exactly. One girl who had been abused since she was 12 years old by this gang actually missed her 15th birthday because she was so wasted. She has lost years of her life, and all of the children were barely aware of what was going on during the abuse, which perhaps is a mercy. It is reported in the Mail that these men would travel to Oxford, often by appointment, from as far afield as Bradford, Leeds, London and Slough, specifically to abuse young girls in hotels and private houses. Sometimes the girls were taken to towns and cities such as London and Bournemouth, where they were sold for sex. These men also subjected them to humiliating and degrading levels of abuse, leaving the girls with severe internal injuries. The gang often stood guard outside a room while girls were being abused and threatened to kill them and their families if they tried to escape. The poor child who forgot her own 15th birthday, even when rescued, started to self-harm to take away the hurt, and told her mother, "I might as well be dead." Opening the case today, Mr Lucas QC said, "Much of what the girls were forced to endure was perverted in the extreme. These defendants and the others with whom they operated showed the complainants little or no human decency or consideration." Now that is the hub of the problem. These men are operating as they would in their own countries and under the auspices of Islam. Whatever Muslims say, their treatment of children from different cultural and religious backgrounds for their own financial gain and sexual use will not go away until it is forced to, and by that I mean members of the public being more on the ball than in the past. Several times people have rung into Profam with stories to tell, and when followed up, they clam up. Why? Because they're too frightened of the feedback from the Muslim communities who often live on their doorsteps and indeed could be neighbours. It must be chilling to have foreign paedophiles who have been getting away with this for years near your own young daughters. In my experience, many of these girls are not vulnerable or in care homes. They come from decent, hard-working families who have just lost the lottery for their towns and cities to the immigrants and multicultural progressives, both of which have no time for British children, British religion or British culture. Fortunately for them, we in the British National Party and Profam are waiting for them to speak. And finally, one for the fish, I feel. A US man was attempting to feed tarpon off a pier in Islamorada, Florida, when one of the fish leapt out of the water and bit him. The man appears to have been trying to feed fish when one latched onto his arm. Video of the incident shows him wrestling with the huge fish for over a minute, dragging it along the jetty in an attempt to free his arm. Some onlookers screamed while another pulled at its tail. After almost being dragged into the water, the man finally managed to shake the creature off and it swam away. Now this presenter has seen the video and it looked as if it was a set-up, with the guy flapping his arm about in the water. Either that or he was trying to catch it and Fishy was having none of it. Clearly these people are on hand to film everything for YouTube. I'm all for the fish fighting back, and I'm glad it got away to bite yet another day. Fish fight back is okay with me. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.